I wasn't Recovery Girl initially. It was Julie, and Julie moved after the first season. And so there was this call that went out that they were auditioning Recovery Girl.
I didn't get an audition for Recovery Girl. You should have. I know.
I think you would have done an excellent.
It would have been a time, it would have been close. I think you still would have got it.
But yeah, I mean, what a blast! I get to play two heroes. They're great.
I know, that's so cool. I didn't even know that till a couple of months ago when you announced it.
Well, and there's like this little teaser in the I think in the last season where Recovery Girl and Gran Torino are having this like little reminiscence. So the backstory of all of that is really interesting to me. Maybe one day we'll get to go back and see more.
That's in the current season right now?
Yeah,
I think it is. I remember that.
Is it in season 4 or season 3? I don't quite remember, but it was in one of these last ones.
Yeah, I think it's 4.
But that's cool.
Lucy, what's your favorite thing about Uraraka?
I like her integrity the most. She's a good girl. But she's sort of saved from being like a too good girl where you're like, she's just a good girl. By being a really excellent hero. She's really strong. She takes her licks. She's tough. I think everybody really fell in love with her when she fought Bakugo. And didn't quite win. But she was going to die trying, you know.
She's also very sweet, genuine, and nice.
She's great. And prone to her, you know, she has her things. She's easily jealous. Huh?
She'll cut someone.
Yeah, she will.
Right,
yeah, she will.
And so a lot of her like accomplishments and growth sort of tend to get thrown under the radar during the series. Is the movie gonna give she some time to shine with like how much how far
she does? In fact, that was one of my biggest thrills about recording this particular movie. Is there were a couple of moments where I was like, she can do that? I didn't know that awesome. She could do that yet. So yeah, there are, and that to me is why I prefer this film over the first one. I feel like you get to see a lot more people get to shine like that. Everybody has sort of a moment, and it's really fun. It's cool to see.
David, are you okay with the way it seems like you're leaning toward Todoroki reaching an understanding with his father, with Endeavor? Do you think they're taking positive steps, or do you think is Endeavor even deserving of his son's respect?
I don't know. It's hard for me to come out and say whether he's deserving or not. You know, I think it really is a complicated issue. I think people have really strong feelings about you know, whether someone should be forgiven or shown empathy. My personal bent on it is that if we can find empathy with each other, that's a positive thing. I know that, you know, he's done some terrible things, and if you believe some of the, you know, there's theories about, you know, other Todorokis and, you know, trying to get the perfect hero and with the things he's done. So I don't know. I think it's going to be difficult. I think it's going to be complicated. I just recorded an episode in the series where he tries to reach out, and you know, Shoto doesn't really receive him. So I do think there's something interesting in the fact that that Shoto chose his father's agency to do his internship at, you know, and he said something about I still have more to learn from him. That was an interesting thing to me. Like, that opened up the idea that maybe there could be a reconciliation, but I think it's going to be tough.
I think you guys have like the best job in the world. Recently with Kaname and Konoken and with Orton.
Oh, yeah.
So
No.
Like almost a decade and a half the last time you guys got to record those characters. So how crazy is it when you get to return to a character over 10 years later?
I mean, it's insane. I feel a huge responsibility to it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the first thing, is that I'm more nervous sometimes doing things like that. I got to return to Sayuki 2 or 3 years ago.
Yep.
And I went back and looked at some of the original, and you really want to do it justice, you know? But yeah, it's a blast. It's amazing.
So fun. And something that, you know, you don't know. Full Metal Panic, however many years ago, that was my first lead role ever. And so that show, it had 3 seasons, and then 10 years later, a 4th season out of nowhere. And thankfully, Funimation was super cool and worked really hard to get a lot of the original cast back, which they didn't have to do.
Right.
But they did it for continuity and for the fans, and
That was the same for
super
me.
cool.
Orphan was my first anime lead role ever. I think it was my second actual anime, working in anime in general. So yeah, I mean, I went back and watched some of the original. I think the whole first season of Orphan is on YouTube, and man, I sound like a baby.
I mean, that's the other thing. I was watching those shows when they first came out, so I mean, if it wasn't you guys getting to play those characters again, I would have been very sad. So I'm just so happy, happy about that.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's
I
great.
have two questions. Questions for Dave. So, Todoroki, we have an outside fireside. Kind of these two opposites,
Right.
Like these two outlets.
Right.
How do you feel that duality resonates with you in a deeper way, perhaps? How have you taken anything from your own life and put it into the character?
I think the first thing that comes to mind when you ask that is, I think that Todoroki's upbringing, his almost military type childhood and training, has made him really hard on himself. I think he's critical of his abilities. I think he holds himself to a really high standard. And I can really relate to that, almost to his detriment. He gets stuck in his head a bit. He's not able to really express himself the way, at least I make up that he would like to. I think there's plenty of times when he's in a situation and he's really only able to say a couple things because he just doesn't know how to do it. I can relate to the getting stuck in my head, to being critical on myself, to holding myself to a high standard, to the point where it almost is diminishing returns. And we saw that in season 3 in the hero license, or the provisional licensing exam. That got in his way. His story and getting in his head got in his way. So I have a real, that's the first thing that comes to mind, but I have a real deep connection to the character as far as his struggles, wanting to be something and not always knowing how to execute it. That's what comes to mind for that.
Thank you. Another simple question, but what kind of pressure are you under? Do you think, or do you feel having played one of the first main heroines in the anime itself, continue to consistently, convey that character's growth and what she means, even when fans might be critical?
I guess I feel pressure. I feel pressure to do the work justice. I think shows like this don't come around very often, and I think most of us that are in it are aware of that. It's got such crossover appeal. It is introducing a new anime fan to people who would not normally watch anime, and with that certainly comes the pressure to want to do a good job. But I'll tell you, what I mostly just feel is excitement. I've been doing this a long time. And that there's a show of this caliber with so many wonderful people. Part of the magic of this show is it's not on my shoulders to carry anything. There are all of these leads and all of these characters, and everybody is so well cast. And the story is so well told that it's hard for the fans to pick who they love, and who they love changes a lot. And in terms of Ochaco, I just feel like the way the class is put together and the strengths everybody has really shows that there's not one kind of hero. They come in all shapes and sizes and stripes, but there's a place for all of us. And it's okay to play your note. Just play your note.
Right.
If you're the good girl who also wants to be a badass fighter and levitate things, if you want to do that to help your parents, or if you want to do that to save people, play that note, and play it the best you can.
So Todoroki has probably had the biggest personality change. He went from just kind of being a brooding type, and now he's a little bit more open, a little more social. How hard has it been to shift that over time, and is there a bigger change coming up?
I hope there's a bigger change. It's really funny that you asked that, because it hasn't been difficult to find growth and that more expression of that character. I keep jonesing for more. Like, when is he really gonna let loose? Like, when might he feel comfortable to really open up to somebody, or because I feel like once he does that, he'll truly feel like he belongs in some way. I do feel like Todoroki feels like he's on the margins in some way. He's always been held up to a certain standard. He's been trained to be, the best hero, or try to be the number one hero. So I was just in a recording session recently, and I was like, I, as the actor, feel I've gotten to this place where I've started to figure out how to do the flatter Todoroki kind of thing, and now I can lock into it, because you can't fully be flat. It's got to be full of all this stuff that's going on inside, and it's interesting. It's an interesting challenge as an actor to try to do that just with your voice. And so, if anything, I'm in the booth going, "Oh, when is it gonna happen? When is he gonna figure out how to use both at the same time and make some, really like break out of this?"
And then the follow up, what's the key to like playing his like denseness when like somebody just says something that he's completely
Do you know the key is innocence? I think that when someone suffers trauma like he did as a child, you go inside yourself and you don't always fully grow at the same rate as maybe someone who didn't suffer trauma. And so it's innocence. I have to remember that he really is innocent inside. I mean, he doesn't have a ton of worldly experience. He was sheltered and trained in a certain way. He doesn't know how to do it. So yeah, it was funny. Somebody, I think Colleen, compared him to Drax in the Marvel, because he takes everything very literally, and it can be hilarious. He just misses the social cue. So yeah, the key, what I have to do to lock into that is remember there's an innocence there, and that's where it comes from.
I think my favorite thing about what Horikoshi did with these characters is that I don't really feel like you can put anyone in a box. Like, you can try.
Yep.
Like Todoroki, like, you think, being Endeavor's son, like, he would become a bully or he would become a jerk, but he's generally nice to everyone, even though he's not really good in solving the situation. And for Uraraka, she's very nice and sweet, but when she's in those fighting situations, she gets her blood up, and she's like, she kind of figures out what to do. Like, yeah, I'm a battle hero. I can fight too. So how do you like that? Like, Horikoshi created these characters that they're so they all have depth and dimension. Like even the pervert, great.
Mineta.
Yep.
It's Minetta's world. We're just in it.
Mineta,
That's right.
Great.
Even though
Yes.
even though he's like, he wants to check out all the girls, like, you feel for him because, like, he's a real person. Like, there's a real person underneath all the trying to. I'm trying to figure out a good way to say fur on girls, but there's a person underneath every character.
Yeah, right.
What do you think about that?
I mean, it's a dream.
Yeah. It's the show is just really, really well written. And something that I think is allowed in this show is they're high school kids, and so as they come at a certain level, and they're going to grow both in their skills and emotionally. I mean, obviously for Ochaco, she's a great hero, but she couldn't figure out her internal feelings about boys if it was dating and farmer. She just can't.
Right.
She doesn't know how to do that yet. So there's going to be, everybody has this growth pattern. I have to tell you a story. This is pretty funny because it has to do with David, or David's in it. My kids, I've introduced them to my hero. I have a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, and we watch it together. And we were watching the sports fest, and David and Todoroki and Bakugo and Deku are there in the minefield trying to get over the finish line, and Deku is blasting himself up into the air, and everything's going on. And there's this moment where there's kind of a lull in the yelling, and everybody's looking and seeing who's going to make it. And my daughter, my 9-year-old, goes, "I like him." And I was
so
like,
awesome.
that is what it is. It's that. It's that the show is fun and compelling, and while you're watching it, people are going, "This is great."
And it's like you said, very rarely is there such a strong world that's created and strong, complex characters within the world. It's like so rich. Even
You root for all
minor
of them.
characters, have such depth, like you said. I mean, it's a dream, and I think that's why we're all excited about it the way that we are.
And the bad guys are great.
Oh my
bad.
God.
Like
Yeah.
they're great.
What was your reaction to like watching the first couple of episodes before you like were actually started recording, and then compare that to watching the film before you started recording,
Oh wow.
or at least knowing the plot and
Yeah.
what happened?
I need to ask a question.
Okay,
Yes.
When you developed your characters, were you relied upon the visual and audition stage, and then in performance stage, did you did you use the Japanese soundtrack to form your characters?
I mean, all of that. Yes. Like it does develop over time. I mean, you get the role mostly because your voice type is right for that role. You did something well in the audition, but then from there, you're definitely. I mean, when I'm working on a character, I'm using the visual of the character. I mean, 50%. The Japanese voice comes into play as far as what's the emotion there, and then I take that, mix it around, and see what comes out. And and then it develops over time. We didn't hear a lot from Todoroki in the first season. He was there, and so you sort of develop a baseline, and then from the baseline you can go up or down. But all those tools I use.
I definitely. The Japanese is definitely the first clue. They give you all the best clues. It's already there. So you know what your level should be. You know what the intensity should be. They're always in our ear, I guess.
Do they play it at audition stage?
Yes, usually, like when you're auditioning for the show, yes, they will show you the scenes in Japanese. And the director will give you some great adjectives, usually, is what you need. Age, vocal range, what they're like, what they're about. And you watch it through, and then you just give your best take. And then the director tweaks you higher, lower, more this, more that. And that's kind of how it goes. And what did you ask?
I asked if we were to compare your reaction to seeing the original episodes before recording and seeing the movie before recording, or just knowing the plot.
Well, I will say that, because I think we can say this, that we were recording the movie before we'd seen some of the rest of the show. And so we're watching the movie going, what?
Right, yeah.
Because we just hadn't recorded those episodes yet to kind of know where some things are going. That was exciting.
Yes. Thank you guys.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Have a good one.